All right, so this is the identify linear section. So they're giving us linear equations and they're asking us what one of the parts means, basically. And so we've just got to remember, what is our linear equations? Y equals mx plus b. Just like we did last time, going the other way. So we have our y-intercept, or our starting amount, and we have our slope, which is going to be the rate. So then we look at this equation, or this question. You see the equation right there. And they're saying, what is the meaning of the 108? Well, we just look and we say, well, that's the one that's not being multiplied by the variable. So that's the y-intercept. That's the starting amount. And then so we just look at the answers and be like, which one talks about how much she starts with? Right there. And that's how it is. The y-intercept is the starting amount. The slope is the rate. So like here, for example, if they're asking about the 23, what would it be? Well, you would see it's either going to be C or D, because those are the ones talking about rates. And you see the per day. But that's the question. Should it be per day or per hour? And then you're just going to look at what the equation is in terms of. The equation is in terms of days. So if it was talking about the 23, it would be this one, per day. Rate per day. So let's just look at this one. And really, they're all extremely similar in that regard. So we're going to let's read this question. According to the model, how many dollars was Jane's initial value? We're looking for the starting value. That's 15. So 15. That's how much she starts with. That's how much she's putting in every time interval, every week. Okay, next. Which of the following best describes the meaning of 0.56? 0.56 is the slope because it's being multiplied by x. So we know it's a rate. So is it the total number of people in the school? No. Is it the average number of students per classroom? No. We have the per, but no, that's still not a rate. Especially when we have C, the estimated increase. So that's definitely a rate of students per classroom each year. Or the estimated difference between the average number in 2000 and 2010. No, definitely not. It's definitely C, because it's a slope. It's a rate. That's all we really need to look for. All right. Next, Celine wants to purchase the tickets from the vendors. We have the equation. What does the 12 represent? So 12 is like the starting value, starting amount. So what's the starting amount mean when it comes to ticket sales? Well, it's the service fee. It's the amount you pay no matter what. You could also think about how if you bought 0 tickets, if n equals 0, you would still be paying that $12 because that's the service fee. That's how much you have to pay no matter what every time. The total amount you'd pay for one ticket, that's going to be the 15, because see, that's like the price per ticket. But that's not what they're asking about. They're asking about the 12. So all these are so similar when you just realize that that's like what you're looking for. So here it's a little more complicated because it's not totally a linear equation. You got two variables here. But when you're talking about the 12, that's still the thing. It's being multiplied by the variables. So it's still going to be like a rate. And in reality, it's just going to be the rate on both of these. So H is the number of hours, N is the landscaper. So it's going to be $12 per hour per landscaper. So what is this? The company charges $12 per hour per landscaper. So there we go. A. Minimum of 12 landscapers will work on each job? Definitely not. Price of each job increases by $12 per hour. So if this N wasn't there, then that's what it would be. But if it's just $12 per hour, that's not taking into account the number of people that are working. And then 12 hours per day? No, definitely not. Definitely not. All right. So what's the next one? Startup company opened with 8 employees. The company's growth plan assumes that 2 new employees will be hired each year. For the first 5 months, if the equation written in the form represents that, what will be the value of B? And so you look, B, that's the y-intercept. Y-intercept, that's the starting amount. How much did they start with? 8. So B is 8. What does A represent? That's the slope. So you know it's a rate. So let's see, the predicted number of centimeters grows each day during the period. That's pretty good, because it's a growth per day. The predicted height in centimeters at the beginning, no, that's the B. The predicted height of the sunflower at the end, no, that's nothing. the predicted total increase of the height. See, that's the one they try to get you with a lot. But the rate is never a total increase. It's always an increase per something. So it's definitely A. Next, what is the meaning of 1.88? So that's the slope. So this is kind of like an AP stats thing in my mind. This is how you talk about slope in AP stats a lot. So what you're going to do here is you're going to say, what is the slope in reality? The slope is the change in y when x changes by 1. And you know that makes sense because you think when the slope is 2 and you think about rise over run, you're saying the rise is 2 when the run is x, when x changes by 1. And normally, so another way you have the slope like this, you think when the rise is 2, the run is 3, which is correct. But another way to look at that is that the rise is 2/3 when the run is 1, right? Because you can always do an over 1 type of thing. But so that's like the definition of slope, is how much the y changes when x changes by 1. So here I would say, what is our y and what is our x? So it's the height, or the h. Yeah, the height increases by 1.88 when the length of the femur increases by 1. Oh, and that's not even an answer choice. Oh no, yes it is. So you know it has nothing to do with the 32.01 because the 32.01 is just the initial condition if like the length was 0. So it's one of these C or D, the approximate increase in a man's femur length. No, it's the approximate increase in the man's height for each 1 increase of femur length because the h is the y variable. So this is really the sentence about what slope is. It's the change in y when x changes by 1. So in this case, the h is the y variable, so it's the change in height when the femur length changes by 1. All right, we got a few more. So let's start here on 17. So if the relationship between the total cost y of buying materials is rented, yeah, what is the slope? So you come up here and you say, what is the slope? So it's maybe a little harder to see it, but you still think about mx plus b. And so what is the m? The m is your w plus k here. That's your slope. So what is the w plus k? What is w and k? Well, w is the rental cost of the wheelbarrow. K is the rental cost of the concrete mixer. So it's the daily rental cost. A lot of people want to put the daily cost. But remember, if the daily cost, technically, if you were really running a business, you would take this material cost and divide it by how many days you did. So that should be included in like the total daily cost. The slope is just the cost of the rental. Because see, this m, the y-intercept, that's just your starting amount. That's how much you're going to have to pay no matter how many days you go. That's just the material you got to buy. And then the last one. Let's again remember the definition of slope because it asks us, according to the model, for every increase of 1 year in age, that's x, by how many millimeters of mercury will the normal systolic blood pressure of an adult male increase? Well, that's just the slope. And so, you know, if you heart this equation, you write it as 1/2 x plus 110, you can see what the slope is. And that's going to be the answer because what's the definition of slope? In this case, it's that the blood pressure increases by 1/2 whenever the age increases by 1, which is exactly what they ask us about. Another really good alternative way to do this problem that I see a lot of students try to do, or at least I suggest a lot of students do, is that if you don't see that, notice how the way they ask it, they're saying that it's the same every year, that every year it increases by the same amount. So just pick 2 years. Pick 2 easy years. Like say, what if x equals 0 and x equals 1? So like from 0 to 1, maybe this equation technically won't work, but even just by the way they're asking it, you know it's the same every year, so you just do whatever years. And then you see when x equals 0, you plug that in, you get 220 divided by 2, which is 110. You plug in 1, you get 221 divided by 2, which is 110.5. And then you just see what that increase is, and see that it increased by 1/2. So that's the big deal about all of these. When they ask you, like, notice how similar all these were. They just pick out a part of the equation and they ask you what it means. And so if it's a linear equation, you just know that the thing being multiplied by the variable is the slope, and the thing that's by itself is the y-intercept. Or the first thing is the rate, the second thing is the starting amount.